Welcome to the first and inaugural podcast for Religion, Economics, and Politics, REP. I am your host, Morris Jackson. And as we talked about at the top of the hour, we're going to discuss financial resolutions for 2022 and doing those things that we need to do to get financially fit for the next year. So, of course, I can't do it myself. You know, I'm the mouthpiece and the hype man, if you will. But I had to bring in some financial experts here, and this is their business. This is what they do. So I have with me Stan Ferguson, great gentleman whom I had the pleasure of meeting here not too long ago during a residency during our doctoral program, and Akili Shabazz. And I would make sure I got Mr. Shabazz's name correct. So nothing more disrespectful than butchering a man's name. So, but they're with let me hear that one more time. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Hidden Tools of Economic War.
Man, I just wanted to hear you guys say it because you guys say it so much better than I do. So, guys, make sure that you follow these guys on YouTube. And before you guys go, we're going to make sure that we get all of your information so that we can follow you. We're going to plug you on our website as well and everywhere we can on social media. But again, so I introduced you, but I would just like to have you guys actually just maybe, tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of your background and how you came, into this arena.
Brother Akili, you want to go?
I guess so. I'm Akili Shabazz. I've been an advocate for about 20 years now. I had a nonprofit organization, and the goal was to reach the high school students, and I did that by targeting the Black student unions. It was unsuccessful, so we revamped it, but we still actually developed a relationship with several school districts. And in the process, we were able to see how the students are being targeted. And it was, I enjoyed myself because I had the opportunity to build with them, but also to educate them and get them to see and understand that, this thing we call, this thing that we call life is really a game, and it attacks us, especially if we are not aware of it. So I was doing that for about 5 or 6 years, and I've been involved with several organizations who have always advocated for the community. And in the process, I've held some different posts in organizations that was actually dealing with charity and money and fundraising. So that's been in my background for 15 years or so. And in the process, because as I'm trying to educate and teach others, I'm still looking and searching and trying to find out more myself. And I became to understand that the money game was actually two worlds. It was a world that we were exposed to. Then it's a world for what I like to call the elite. Sometimes we call them the actual 1%. Sometimes we call them the actual 10%. But nonetheless, it's those who understand the tools that are actually given to them. So I was always searching for something, that I came across something that I found actually very beneficial a few times, but most recently I discovered something. I'm like, that's it. Because it's kind of like when you hear about something, you kind of got an ideal of what it is and you're trying to figure it out and put it together. But when I came across this, I'm like, that's the answer right there. That's how they do it. So now I got to do that and give it to our actual people. I reached out to Stan. He and I started sharing some information. We actually formed a partnership, and then the partnership actually grew. And Stan called one day, said, "We need to do a podcast." I'm like, "That's a good idea. We need to create a vehicle to educate our people." And then in the process of doing that and brainstorming, we realized, since it was the economy or economics is not something that we're openly taught. So we came up actually with the names of Hidden Tools of Economic War, because
I love it.
It's right there in plain sight. I mean, it's right. I mean, we don't know how many times in a day we walk right past these tools, or we may read right past. We may even read it and not recognize it for what it is. you know. So we had realized that since we are trained in it, we needed to come up with a platform that would allow us to teach the people and open their eyes for what they can see, or to look at what they may already be doing in a different light, and then be able to, for the lack of a better term, do like the Rockefellers do, you know, just understand how they can use these tools to recycle and build actually for sale, to the point where your actually grandchildren are on like autopilot. So that's kind of what I do and what I did in like a nutshell.
Man, thank you for that. And that's very interesting. And I can't wait until we get a little more into this, because it sounds like you definitely bring a rich background and experience, to this field, and can offer a lot, I think, to get, people where they need to go financially, not only for themselves, but for the generations to come, create some generational wealth. So, all right, Stan.
Hey, all right. So my name is Stanley Ferguson, as Brother Mars has already told you. But how I got into this arena, I come out of an IT background. I didn't think I'd end up in this arena, but something actually very interesting happened in my family. So when my mom retired, she retired at an early age. But after retirement, I would say maybe 7 years after retirement, she literally had exhausted her account, right? So she exhausted her account. And you combine that with my dad retiring early, him having medical issues. So retirement account exhausted, him having medical issues, led to one thing. They were uneducated in how to make their money last, how to combine all of that together so his medical issues could be taken care of. She would still have retirement money, in her account. So that became an educational goal for me. And Brother Keeley said that he reached out to me one day, and it was kind of like that perfect storm. I'm in this area. I'm searching how to figure this stuff out. So he brings me in, shows me this whole new world of tools that are just right at our fingertips, but they just never make it to our community. Now, so I end up going into the insurance industry, just on the property and casualty side, learned a lot there, helping families, doing different things, and extending out to the life insurance side. But even though we know about the life insurance side, there's another step inside of that we need as a community that can help us fight off some of these, I would say, financial vampires. They just come in, just take everything. Mainly they take your financial resources. So being this, working with Brother Keeley, developing hidden tools of economic war, that's kind of our flag, our flag that we carry into the community, so we can teach our people exactly what we know. And everything for us is an open book, because we want to share, we want to give back, we want to teach. And if we don't know, we can go find the answers. So everything can be taught, and everything can be learned, and we can be that vehicle to help our community to grow in this area.
Brother Stan, that is just awesome, man. And I'm telling you, that really is near and dear to my heart. I mean, that's something that I've been passionate about for years, actually. I didn't necessarily know how to get there. Some things I was already doing, didn't know I was doing it. Some things I felt like I should be doing, but wasn't doing it. So if you notice, I've got my paper and my pen out as well. So I'm going to be learning from you guys, as just like the listeners are going to be learning. So, but I knew I had a higher calling. So just like I'm listening to the both of you, this is personal. I mean, this is not just a fly by night or something to do to get rich, get quick type deal. This is personal. You have literally you have skin in the game, and this is a personal calling for me. Like I said, I've worked in corporate America now for the last oh goodness, I'm getting old, man. 20 years. But before that, I was in law enforcement. And then before that, I was in the military. So I'm actually a corporate security director as we speak for a large oil and gas company here in the Houston area. Now, that's something that I do as a profession, but that's not necessarily my calling. So my calling is to minister to people and actually educate and enlighten them. So, and ministering is just nothing but serving. To be a servant to God's people. So, even though we approach it, as I was telling Brother Keeley, as we approach things on this show from a biblical perspective, but the information that we're going to provide to folks is universal. The Bible says that, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And sometimes we even reject that knowledge. So we know we're not going to be able to get everyone to accept the knowledge that we're putting out, but we got to start somewhere. And, so I would just say to those that have an ear to hear, let them hear. If they take the information that we're going to put out here today, they're going to be successful. Like I said, those laws are universal, and you've seen it. If you don't believe us, then look at some of the families like the Rockefellers and some of these folks out here in the top 1% that have applied this over and over again, just creating this perpetual wealth or this generational wealth. So, man, this is awesome. So, like I said, with this being the first show, I felt like this is very important. We just finished the holidays, or some of us still in it. I know I ate way too much. We probably spent a little bit too much money. And, which brings me to our topic is our financial resolution for 2022. So everyone's making resolutions to lose weight. I'm going to do this. I'm going to cut this habit. I'm going to stop drinking, whatever it is, but we know all that money that we spent, we know the bills coming due, because I guarantee a lot of folks probably went out and charged it up. Some of us probably spent, some money in advance and saying, okay, well, I'll put it back, or some kind of way I'll make it back. As we all know, that doesn't always work all the time. And so, and even if you do, sometimes they get the things paid off just before next Christmas just to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
So, but so what I wanted to do is bring you all in and just hear from the experts, man. What is it that we can do to become more financially fit, financially astute going into 2022, based on just the money we have now. And then even if we had to invest some money, not everyone has $10,000 laying around or $15,000 laying around. And if you do, that's great. Not mad at you. I mean, that's great. And I'm sure these guys can use some advice for that as well. But one of the things I wanted, like I said, that was the first question, is what can we do right now to improve our financial fitness going into 2022? And either one of you can take that. I'll just throw that out there.
I'll start. I think the first thing we have to do is be realistic about our budget. I think that's the first thing. We have to know what we're making, what our expenses are, and in addition to that, what expenses do we really need? I think if the pandemic, one of the things we should have learned from the pandemic is that a lot of the things that we are doing is extra stuff. When we were shut down, we got to see what was really essential and what really wasn't essential. And I think we have to focus on that and make sure that our budget is right and exact as possible would be step number one. I think the other thing that we have to do is we have to be ready for what may happen, because once again, the pandemic shows us at any blowing of the wind, we can be in a dire reality. We can be actually cut off from friends and family, not having food. There's so many things that could actually happen. So I think we have to make sure that we are prepared in the case that we pass. And we don't want to go through life accumulating, I'll just say things, actually, whether it's cars, whether it's homes, whether it's actually stocks and bonds, whatever the case is, we want to make sure that when we pass, that our children, our spouse, our family has access to the resources, and they do not fall in the hands of other people, so they can hold it up and once again drain our resources from us. So
let me, if you don't mind, let me jump in there just a second. So when you say be prepared for the unknown, and I'm hearing two things there, and I just want to make sure I clarify for everyone listening or maybe watching this. So I'm kind of hearing, so do we need like an emergency budget or emergency fund? And then I'm also hearing kind of life insurance or insurance in there. I'm kind of hearing two things in there. Would I be right in that, or?
You would be right, and I would
Okay.
add a third in and say a will.
A will.
You know, I would say that you would need a will as well. I mean, if you've been following the news, it's almost commonplace for people to actually pass away without having a will, without having their assets identified, and their money just gets caught in limbo. It just floats out.
Right.
It floats out.
And that doesn't just happen to poor people. It happens to rich people
Exactly.
too, right? I mean, was it Prince didn't
and
have
the
a
rich
will?
people are the ones that we're hearing about, because we're not going to hear about the poor people. The rich people are the ones
Right.
who got actually millions and millions just stuck. You know,
Right.
So yeah, I think we need to have a will so we can identify actually what is what. We need to have insurance so that in the event that something happens, it is not a stress on our family. And the other thing that a will does, it clarifies what we actually want. So in the event that we do pass untimely, our loved ones are not scrambling about what needs to happen. So the insurance would be the actually tool number two. And if we look at the right form insurance, and let me even back up. If we were blessed enough to get insurance early enough, then we can have a nice insurance policy at a nice rate that's accumulating nice actually cash value, which can then actually double as your emergency fund.
Yes.
You know?
So let me back up, because I heard a little rumor, and I need you guys to clarify this for me. But I heard that a lot of wealth, if not most wealth, that is gained by families is actually created through life insurance. So a lot of the inheritances that are left behind.
You know, I would go ahead, Stan.
I would just like to add that's a great question, and let me give you kind of a hard-hitting example. So during the Great Depression, 30s, starting 29, back up. Prior to that, it was the blooming 20s, they called the roaring 20s, right? So where they actually spent it up. They didn't have credit cards, but they spent a bunch of money.
Oh yeah,
right? Resources, maxed out everything. So that led into the 30s, right, where you had a big drought of everything, resources, money, and folks were actually in a Great Depression. Well, you had specific big companies that actually had life insurance policies in place. Most people don't know that JCPenney's, Walt Disney, McDonald's, they were all suffering and nearly broke. But guess what they had in place? Life insurance policies. Wow. They actually went into their life insurance policies, borrowed money, not loaned, but borrowed money from their life insurance policy to get them through those tough times. And so,
okay, so you touching on something.
Go ahead.
You touching on something that, hold that thought, because you're touching on something I definitely want to ask about, because that's, man, that's powerful. That's powerful. And I don't want the people to miss that, because that's definitely something I think we have no idea about.
Right. Yes, sir.
No idea about. So, but anyway, I hated to interrupt your thought there, but I wanted to make sure that we encapsulated that particular information, just like I said. I wanted it to be standalone, because that's so important.
Right. So now, if we take it from the big picture, the big corporation, and take it down to the individual family member, right? Nice. We look at, you mentioned earlier, you asked the question, what can we do now going into 2022? Well, Brother Keeley had mentioned that we take that financial picture. You get your family members in there, and you sit down and you get write it down. You got to write it down, get it out of your head,
yes.
Get it on paper. That way you see your debits, you see your credits, you see your assets, whether physical, non-physical assets, you lay it all out, right? Now you go to that next step. You want to say, well, I got this amount of money, I got these many assets, I got this level of debt, right? And I'm this age, for example, and you can calculate, how many years you think you're going to want to work. If you're going to work another 20 years, you take all of that money, right, that you're actually making over a 20-year period, and you go and talk to an expert about getting an insurance policy that'll cover you in case you pass away. Your family doesn't stop. Your family keeps going. This is what wealthy people do. Wealthy people keep it going. They are not emotional about death because they know it's going to happen. I mean, it's an emotional time, but they understand that I'm leaving families behind, and we need to keep our families going forward. And when you look at certain communities, I can speak personally from the community I come from. Life insurance is something that we don't want to talk about.
You're right. You're right.
We don't want to talk about. And then when a loved one passed away, now we're scrambling trying to raise money just to get them buried.
So Stan, let me ask you too, because I shared with you that my mother recently passed away in this June, and so there's two things that I think that we are dealing with. So either we are underinsured, and then I don't think we know what type of insurance or what level of coverage to get. So maybe that ties into being underinsured. And then there's what I like to call the upfront money. So, like I said, my mother passed away. Yes, her insurance policy was there. Now she was what I would call underinsured. Now, thank God I had the funds to cover some of the things that were not covered in the insurance policy, and I also had the funds to take care of that upfront money. So I think that catches a lot of people off guard when the loved one passes away. Is they think, oh, as soon as the person passes away, I'm gonna get the insurance money the next day, and I'm gonna be able to take care of all these different things. Well, the funeral home wants their money right now. I've actually seen it where they wouldn't release the body until that insurance, they got that payment. So and I hope I'm not sidetracking you or anything.
No, you everything.
But I think this is important for folks, and especially if you haven't, like, this is my first time ever having to make arrangements. Usually everyone in our family were a lot older, and it was my older cousins or uncles or someone else had to do it. But there's going to come a day when you're going to have to make those arrangements, and you need to know what to do and what to expect. Right.
And so that's a great point. And Brother Keeley, you want to speak on that?
Sure. One of the actually services in which we offer, along with actually doing a will, identifying the different assets that we may have. We have the capacity to draft out your own will with software which helps you, as well as, ironically, help you to find the funeral homes in your area to help actually price. We have a service where you can do all of this online, which also includes the burial package. So it also includes insurance with it as well. And the one thing about this type of insurance compared to a life insurance policy, the life insurance policy can take up to 2 weeks to actually pay out, if not longer, depending on what is required. Right. But with our specific package, you can get actually paid off within actually 48 hours. So it does not hold up your planning. It does not hold up your planning because, that's a stressful time, especially if it's unplanned for and it just happens like a car accident and boom, like, okay, you got the trauma of what happened, plus the reality of trying to deal with your loved ones, plus trying to prepare the proper send-off, which means now you have to go and think and write and create a whole program. So all of that can be actually very stressing. But what we offer is we offer you the ability so that I can plan my own service and that it's recorded, it's outlined. So actually when I pass, it's almost like powering up your computer and just hitting start. You can just actually run the playbook. And you can have everything outlined. But however, as we were speaking of earlier, actually death is not something that people want to just openly, honestly have a conversation about. We don't do that proactively, we do it reactively, and if we do it proactively, we are able to set out a plan to the point where all we need to do is say, okay, to your children, to your wife, here's my information. You give them a website, you give them a password, and they can access that. And then within that website, they can find all your other documents that you need. So it can be a vault, if you will, that stores everything. And this type of program is very easy to qualify for as long as you don't have any outstanding or important, or not important, but you don't have any major issues with your health.
Okay. And so just hearing this, man, this, if we took advantage of this particular plan, or this option, I mean, this would keep us from having to do the fish fries, the GoFundMes,
Yes.
Right.
you know, and all of those are, I mean, it's a means to an end if we got to go there. But if we don't have to, you know, let's take care of an option like this. And I would like to speak to the men out there as fathers. You know, if this is part of taking care of your family, and you can do that for your family even after you're gone. And you know, I just said take that stress off of them. So, you know, I would just say think about your wife, think about your children. You know, as the head of your household, you know, sit down, have that conversation with your wife, and like I said, now may not necessarily be the kids. I'm not sure how young they would be, but at least sit down with your wife and get that taken care of, because you know, statistics say that, I mean, we're usually going to pass before our wives anyway, and that's just facts. So, you know, for whatever reason that may be, whether stressors or health or whatever the case is, but we generally will pass before our wives. So I would just implore everyone to take advantage of that option. And so we'll definitely put that information out here at the end of, like I said, this podcast, so we can make sure that you all can reach out to these gentlemen and discuss your options there. But this is something I think you definitely should make a part of your financial planning, because your financial planning not only involves while you're here, but it also should incorporate arrangements for you, you know, should you happen to pass on, you know, unexpectedly, or you know, at a ripe old age, and you know, just one day God calls you home. But either way, I mean, we're going to end up there, so we need to make the proper preparation. So I'm sorry, Brother Keeley, I jumped in. Man,
no problem, brother.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that it's a lot of information, and I know that as we have conversations, there's going to be many triggers in there for each individual, because our own life is specialized for the individuals. So, but it's just important that, and I agree with you. We have to get over this conversation, because, you know, death is coming. Mm-hmm. It's coming regardless of whether you wanted to or not. And it's best to be, it's best to have your plan outlined and to have your family aware of the plan. And the other thing that's very important is to let people know that you have a policy. You know, there is millions of dollars that go, matter of fact, I want to say it's billions of dollars that goes unclaimed every year, because the insurance company is not notified that so-and-so died, because the beneficiaries were not aware that they were beneficiaries, or were not aware that uncle had a policy.
So what happens to that money, if I may ask?
It goes to the state. It just sits. It just sits unclaimed. You know, now I don't know how long it sits unclaimed for, but I would imagine, you know, the actual lost and found in your high school, it only stayed lost and found for so long. After a while, the lost and found was empty, right?
Right.
You know,
well, I know that if I was paying for a policy and I had that in mind for my loved ones, man, I sure would be disappointed and hurt to know that they didn't get those funds. So
yeah, and disappointed
you're right.
Is a very nice way of saying it. That's a very nice way of saying it. It would be way more than disappointed. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm trying to be politically correct.
No, I understand. I understand. But yeah, if I'm paying for some 10, 15, 20 to 30 years and I pass, and I'm passing the piece, because I know they got I planned it out. They got what they need. And come to find out.
But I know exactly what you're saying, because, you know, I've had some great grandparents pass away, and everyone's like, well, I knew he had a policy somewhere. Or I think he had you know, so even if they knew he had a policy, they don't even know where it's at. You know, what's the name of the insurance company? You know, we're all looking for it. We're trying to find that little metal box, and we can't find it,
Exactly.
and maybe they hid it somewhere behind, a picture somewhere, or we're looking for it forever. But
or
yeah, that's
in some
important.
cases, it might be filed in the Bible.
Yeah.
It might be filed away in the family Bible, so
yeah.
Absolutely. But I think the one thing, and it goes a couple ways, actually communication has been used against us to control us, but we also underutilize it to share and plan and organize our own affairs. We have to make sure that people need to know what's going on. And the one thing about this program is it's online, so you have an online vault.
Okay.
Which allows you to store everything. You go out, you get a new policy, the policy changes, you go buy something else, you sit down and you actually type it in. Okay, I now have this car with this bank, it's paid off. I keep my pink slip here. I got a copy of it here. I made a picture of it. It's in this vault, So it gives you the option to really outline things to the point where you don't have to dump everything on the bed and go through it.
Yeah, I just got that visual, man. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So like I said, Brother Keely, Stan, and this is great. Now, I would be all for doing it online. I think it's convenient. But you have some of older generation in our communities. They may not necessarily feel comfortable with having an online option, because if they can't touch it, feel it, it's right here. If they can't go get the folder and shake out some paper and actually hand it to you, they don't feel comfortable with it. So, is there any way? What do you suggest? So do we have someone maybe in the family that is kind of technologically, comfortable with this option, and they can kind of, be a caretaker for them to oversee this, or, what are some options out there for those who just may not necessarily be comfortable with it because they're just from a different time, different generation, and they prefer that paper.
Absolutely. One option, and this kind of feeds into our earlier conversation. One option is you have that generation who want to come in and they want to sit down and they want to touch, they want to meet. Now, this is from what I'm pulling from now is my day-to-day activity as an insurance manager. You got that generation that's just retired. They say, I'm used to a handshake. I'm used to face-to-face. I'm used to paper. So in the bank, you can set up a safe deposit box. So all the stuff that we talk about, you can just print it out. Go and get a safe deposit box at the bank. Take grandmama to the bank, get her a safe deposit box number 24. And that manager that's at the bank, every time grandmama come in to inventory her safe deposit box, that manager is going to greet her by her first name, escort her to the safe deposit box. She makes sure that will is there, that the estate plan is there, everything that she needs that she can manage, right?
Right.
And as a secondary, you can have that tech-savvy family member also, keep the tech-savvy stuff updated online as well, right?
Okay.
So they go hand in hand, side by side. So you got one for the older generation, the safe deposit box. If she doesn't want to do safe deposit box, of course, you can keep that at the house. But I would highly recommend something that's controlled, that safe deposit box that's at the bank, okay?
Yes,
so those are two options. You can then that's why you want to get all the family members in together, because you got that every child that's born right now, pretty much born already tech savvy, so they know. All right.
Yep.
And so you can intermix that in that family meeting. And another thing about wills and beneficiaries, what I would do is, if you have a bank account, this is something that your membership can do. If they have a bank account, they just need to verify that they have a beneficiary on that bank account that's at the bank. Because I know in my personal experience, you have family members, and I share this with your membership. I had a father come in once, a couple months ago. His son passed and his wife passed. Now his son had a nice size piece of money in a bank account, but guess what? He had it where nobody knew the bank. Nobody knew his passwords.
Wow.
He had what we set up on e-bill, e-policy, where everything is sent to his email. So his family member knew nothing about it. So what does the bank do? In this case, this local bank, they will continue to assess fees to that account till that money is gone. So if he had $100,000 in there, they will assess $100,000 worth of fees until that account is drained out because he had no beneficiary. There's nobody to reach out to. It's not the bank's job to reach out to the family member.
Right.
The family member's job to control the bank.
Wow. Man, it reminds me of that passage in the Bible, man, where it talks about the person who stores up their riches and the moths and the the elements just eat away at it, man.
Yeah.
Oh man. So but they're literally doing it, but they're just doing it in a digital format.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
You know,
so
if I may add actually one thing real quick, the other way to help in that situation would be to set up reviews so that we can meet with the individual, whether they want to do it annually, semi-annually, quarterly, and just go over everything with them to make sure, see, okay, if you had any changes in your will, okay, do you need to actually print out your will? So we can work with them to see what's going on and to facilitate the conversation with that other family member to make sure they know they need to go to this site and help grandma, auntie, mom do A, B, and C. And just to make sure that the owner of the policy is aware who the beneficiaries are, and that's how they want, and that the stuff hasn't been changed. But we can manage that stuff through doing annual reviews with them or quarterly, whatever the case is.
So now we had asked, so we talked about, and this is all great information, and I want to do, what I want to do is take away the cloud or the mystery around some of this stuff, so we talked about, setting aside a budget. So whatever your budget is realistically, like I said, assessing this, that's going to depend on each individual needs and income. Right. And then we talked about being prepared, which we said, that kind of encompasses the having a budget, but we talked about the will and then insurance. So to do a will, and I'm pretty sure people think, well, man, that's for rich people. And, and this probably costs a lot of money. So is it expensive to have a will drawn up for you?
It is not necessarily expensive. A trust type of thing would be a lot more of an expensive document. A will, especially with the program in which we offer, depending on your age, you can get a will and insurance coverage for actually $50 a month. And that gives you the ability to be able to actually edit it, to do actually power of attorney documents. In case you get ill, you can say, okay, my cousin's going to take care of me. My cousin passed, I need to change it so-and-so, takes care of me. It gives you the flexibility to be able to do that. Now, please understand that the monthly amount is based upon the amount of actually burial insurance coverage in which you want. So if you want, and of course it's all based upon age and health. So if you're 65 years old trying to do this compared to somebody who's 25 years old, just by age itself, you got a huge difference. So, but that's just an average of what you would be able to do depending on what the individual wanted to do and what else they may already have in place as far as other insurances. Okay.
And there was two things I wanted to say. So one thing was, so we're talking about $50 a month. Let's just say it's, $100 a month, and I guarantee you we spend that easily in a week without even thinking about it. If you think about, some of us go out and we get subscriptions to Hulu and all these different things. And, the only thing these guys are going to give you when you pass away is the final bill. So they're definitely not going to pay out a beneficiary, like I said, a payout or anything, a cash or anything like that to your family, to help take care of you after the fact. So talking about insurance, and then like I said, I'll move to the next topic here unless you guys have something else. But so when we talk about insurance, so we have the burial insurance, but I know there's life insurance in the forms of whole life insurance versus term insurance. You know, kind of talk about the differences between the two and why would I want one over the other? Because I know my grandparents always had where the little insurance guy would come by. He would, collect the premium, come knock on the door, and he get the premium. And that premium, that policy may have only been worth $5,000, but they've been paying that premium for 35, 40 years, whether it was $50, $60 a month, whatever. But I'm no mathematician, but I bet you that $30, $45 a month, whatever it is, times 30, 35 years is more than $5,000. So, so just talk about some of the different types of insurance and what are the benefits of it, because I don't want to demonize one form of insurance over the other. The thing is, I think we just don't know what the benefits of them are and how to properly use them.
Stan, you want to go ahead? Yeah. So it all depends on your goals. Again, I go back to that meeting, that individual meeting, that family meeting. If you are, in this case, let's focus on term insurance. Let's say you're a new couple. New couple just bought a house. Say your house is $200,000, and you might want to think about having enough insurance in place. As the man of the house, as we normally, like you said, Brother Jackson, that we normally pass away first. Statistics, right?
Right.
So you might want to have some term insurance in place. Let's say a 30-year policy. You plan to have the house paid off in 30 years or sooner. That if you do pass away, your wife is taken care of. That $200,000 house, you got a $250,000 policy or $200,000 policy in place. She doesn't have to worry about that. She doesn't have to worry about the bills. That's done. That's taken care of. Now she has time to properly grieve because that stuff is taken care of, right? So that's a focus on the term insurance portion. If you just want something, they call it now. They got a new fancy name. They call it mortgage insurance. That's
okay.
Basically,
it's the same thing. Okay.
Yeah. So they kind of upgrade the language a little bit, and then you get to the whole life. Some people have the whole life, and some people like that whole life because you can take that whole life out to a number of years. If you are now, let me back up. That whole life is a lot more expensive than the term insurance. Term insurance is simple. You 10, 15, 20, even 30-year policies. Whole life insurance can go a lot longer than that, but they'll be a lot more expensive for you. And it all depends on the dollar amount that you want. It depends on the company that you go with. For example, I had a gentleman. Now this ties into what you're saying. What you said earlier about your parents had the 5,000 where they paid 40 years, and but this gentleman literally he had let's see here, he had an $8,000 policy. He had the policy for 30 years. He cashed it in, and I cashed it in for him. He got back $7,800. Do the math. Do the math. So he got back less than what he had paid out for the policy. I'm just tired of it. I'm gonna go ahead and take it and cash it in. Now that was a whole life policy. I'm assuming he bought that policy. He was a lot younger, so it wasn't as expensive. But as you get older, you can get up to the hundreds of dollars as far as the whole life insurance would cost you. Now those whole life policies also have cash value on it. If you want to keep it for a while, you want to come in and pull some money out, you can. You can borrow against it. Of course, you set the repayment. You get a low interest rate. All of those are some of the advantages. The term insurance they don't do that extra stuff, so that's why it's a lot cheaper, not as versatile than a whole life. But again, it would start with sitting down, deciding exactly what you want, set some goals, and then you go and kind of apply the type, either term policy or whole life policy to your family goals.
And you know what? And that's great information. And I really recommend people to go and sit down with, an insurance professional, an agent, like I said, very knowledgeable, like yourself. And, maybe not, like I said, if they're in your state, maybe like I said, they contact you, maybe you refer them to someone in their state, or, just depending on where you're licensed at, because there's nothing like having a plan personalized for your needs. And I think people will be surprised at how much coverage they can get for not as much money as they are thinking. And I would also recommend just put it on auto draft, forget about it, don't do it to where you got to make the payment, because I guarantee you something is going to come up and you're going to rationalize not making the payment. And I can't tell you how many times, even just with auto insurance, when I was a police officer, I can't tell you how many times someone said, man, I just let my auto insurance lapse and they had a wreck, and it always happens that way, so it's, the insurance is just that. It's to insure us against those times where, things just happen and we don't foresee it.
Right.
If we all knew when we were going to pass away, I might would say, okay, hey, you have a point, but we could end this, God forbid, but we could end this podcast and and one of us could check out. We don't know. Someone listened to this podcast, at the end of it, who knows, that could be the last podcast they listen to. My hope would be that if that is the case, that they got some insurance right after they they heard this, and they were prepared. So, but man, that is great. So on the life insurance, on term life, so is it possible to get? So let's say you talked about the house. So let's just say I had children and they were 14, 15 years old, and I was worried about their college education, and hey, if I'm gone, how's my wife going to make it without me? And could I get additional, funds, or could I get a larger policy to maybe cover some expenses or college that I thought, okay, well, hey, this is what I'm estimating it would be. Could I get a policy in that amount? Or how does that work?
No, that's an excellent question, brother. Let me clarify too. Let me add on to two other things though that actually Brother Stan was mentioned on the whole life policy, on any permanent life policy. You can kind of you can say I'm gonna pay this policy until I'm 80. You can say I'm just gonna pay it till I'm 25. But of course, that's going to affect the actual death benefit. But you do have a little more flexibility in that. When it comes to term, you got to pay that term until it expires, period.
Okay.
So, you can pay it monthly, you can pay it quarterly, you can pay it annually, but you're going to pay it until it expires. With a whole life or a permanent policy, it may cover you to your 100, 120 years old, but you can say, I'm going to stop paying it when I'm 60, and then you'll still be covered as long as it's structured that way. Okay. To answer your other question, there are various types of permanent policies. We have one called IUL, which is called actually Universal Life Policy. With this policy, it has a different growth factor, which it can grow better. And then if you're having children, you can insure them at their birth or shortly thereafter, which would do a few things. It'll get you a very cheap rate, because what health problems will a 1-year-old have? So
right.
Excuse me. And the life expectancy is so long that once again, you would have a good rate. Then you can get them $100,000 coverage, $200,000 coverage, whatever the case is. And as that accrues over the 18 years, that money that accrues in time could be money that you pull out for, college. Could be money for your daughter's wedding. It could be actually money for your son's for him to start a business. It depends on what you want to do. It depends on your vision, and of course, it depends on your finances. But these are just some of the ways that this stuff can actually be used. But college is a primary methodology in which you can use insurance policies for that. And
so you're telling me I can do these things, very affordable way of doing this, and I can achieve something like I said, set up my college fund for my kids, or funding my daughter's wedding, or my son to start a business, and I don't have to have $500,000 in the bank or have a rich uncle, or I can do this for my family with, very economically. I can put a plan in place to do this.
especially if you start this policy actually when they're young. If you do it at an infant or toddler age, then the policies can be actually very affordable. So yes.
Which that dovetails right into the next topic, is, how can parents begin saving money for their children's education? So, and like I said, and it doesn't necessarily have to be education. It could be, something else. They may want to go to a trade school. They may want to go into business, because I understand that college is not going to be for everyone, and that would be for that individual family to decide. But, so more so, how can families, set themselves up to be able to plant a seed into their children's life at the appropriate time, when they're ready to go out and take on the world or become a young man, young woman, and strike it on their own. And so I guess this is one of the ways you're saying that we could do this.
Absolutely. It's the whole key is to be forward thinking enough to not look at it as the possibility that my 1, 2, 3-year-old may actually die, but look at this as a possibility about I can get coverage for them in case they die. But in the meantime, I get the living benefits of the accumulation value, in which I can then use however I want to use it. And then I have the option of what I want to take out, how much I want to actually put back, what I want to actually use it for. I don't have to qualify for it because it's already my money. It's just about making sure that it's there. So that would be probably the number one strategies I would advise actually parents to get started on, is to get a policy started now, because if you're working, if whatever your means are right now, you have a child and you can pay $50 a month right now, start that $50 policy. And then you get a job, you start your business, whatever things get actually benefits for you, you can start them $150 policy. It's not like you're limited to the point where you can only have X amount of policies for these individuals. But as we said earlier, of course, you want to make sure that everything is known for what you have. So in the event that you need to utilize it, in the case of death, or actually before death, where the policies are, what the value is, and you and your agent are meeting every year to just analyze it, see if you want to change up the structure. And you have all these different ways of doing that. But it's very flexible options. Like I said, it's based upon your actual vision and the experience / creativity of your agent.
So I think that's a really powerful tool, because you're literally impacting your family generations to come. Let me ask you this, because, and I'm just keeping it real, because sometimes we don't know, we may have a family member who may not necessarily have the forethought, and they're just not going to do it. Is it possible for, like, say, myself or someone else to say, hey, you know what? They're not going to do it. I would like to be able to start a policy for that child, or for that cousin, or that niece, or that nephew. Could you then also do that, or does it have to be the parent?
If they are underage, it has to be the parent or a guardian. They want to. The insurance company wants to make sure that the individual owning the actual policy, in the case of a guardian, or excuse me, in the case of an under 18 child, that they are the actual guardian of that child, because there's many of actually possibilities. So insurance company is basically hedging their bets. But they want to make sure that the individual is insured by the parent or the guardian. I say that because I recently had a policy that the actual grandmother owns, but it's for her grandson, and her son is listed as a beneficiary, but he's not involved in the application process other than that. So it's based upon actually grandmother's ability to pay and everything else. The son is not involved in that aspect. In that aspect of it at all. So,
okay.
You have that flexibility now. But if the individual is over 18, then yes, I can buy a policy for my adult child or my adult cousin. They would be the insured, so they would be covered. Their life is covered, and I would be the owner of the policy. So in the event it was a cash accumulating policy, I would be able to access the cash through that policy, but it's covering his or her life.
Okay. Wow. I'm learning something. Like I said, man, I've been taking a lot of notes here. So, I definitely would want to look into it and see if there's some other tools, something available that where we could maybe accumulate some sort of wealth for that underage child, just in case. Because like I said, I just, I've seen it personally, and something where we could maybe do something for that child. So when they turned 18, 19, if they didn't get that scholarship, or let's just say all of their financial aid needs were not met, we would have some funds available that could cover those additional costs. So that may be something we have to definitely look into or discuss. Like I said, I definitely like to discuss with you guys. It could be off.
Yes, sir.
Just kind of, like I said, kind of outside of this forum, but and like I said, we find that I definitely like to offer it to the listeners and just make sure we put that information out there. And if it's something that they can come to you guys to talk to you all about, hey, I definitely will be, making sure that they contact you all.
Yes,
so coming back to something, and this is my last question here, and so I know Stan had alluded to it. So was and I'd heard about this, was the infinite or personal banking, and that in my limited knowledge of this would have something to do with insurance as well. It's another way in which insurance can work for us. We talk about insurance for for the most part for as a death benefit, and how it would actually help our families in case of our demise. And we had to check out, but there are also some ways in which we can use insurance and it benefits the living. And
right.
So I'm not gonna mention more about that. I'll just let Stan take that where he left off when he was talking about these big corporations that actually dipped into these insurance policies and basically rescued or bailed themselves out.
Okay. Well, I'll just talk about looking at it from the family planning standpoint. Again, when we talk about that personal banking, this is where we got to start at the beginning. Because this is personal banking for the family. That's what we call it. Mm-hmm. So you look at your long range goals, and you can set this up, and it has to be set up properly. That's the key. It has to be set up properly, and again, we go back through, in this case, the IUL. You can use that to structure that family banking type scenario for your family after you take a look at what you guys want in the future for the children, mainly, like Brother Keely said, education, maybe a job. Let me back up. Not a job, but starting a business, marriage, to help that young couple get started. But the family banking comes with a lot of planning as well. Like, you want to have some I's dotted, T's crossed. You want to have some guidelines in order to access this money, right? So, you got to have a good credit score, for example. And this is something that we got to sit down as a family and talk about. We got to be serious with each other. Like, hey, we have money set in an insurance policy that I'm going to use these two key words here. Well, one key word we can borrow against from an insurance policy, right? Not loan, but borrow against. Borrow this money to loan to you, right? That you would pay back over a certain period of time, right? And so now that young couple that you've helped get started, or that teenager who's going to college, you would definitely have an insurance policy on that person as well, because if anything happened, that money would just come back into that family personal banking, so it keeps getting replenished. You can have the same setup for a parent who's part of that family banking, that personal banking, for a grandparent. So when she passes away, that money comes back into that family pool of money. So it continues to go from generation to generation. You kind of see what I'm saying? Generation. So everybody within that program eventually has an insurance policy, and that insurance policy, a part of the insurance policy, that money goes to keep that money there. The Rockefeller plan and the Kennedy plan too, because as you know, every Kennedy child is born automatically inherits $1 million. That comes out of an insurance policy that they have set up. And
so we could literally set up and have a Ferguson plan or a Jackson plan or a Shabazz plan. We could literally go and set that up just like the Rockefellers did for ourselves.
Just like it's nothing. It's no big mystery. It's just like we had said earlier, the hidden tools of economic war. We don't have that information, sits right outside of our communities. That knowledge sits right, and we just taking that and bringing it inside and sharing.
Wow.
There's no big mystery to it. You don't need to have $1 million. You just need to sit down, figure your budget out, do it in time enough. Start with young people, even you can get your older people involved as well. An agreement, like me and my brother, my mom said, hey, I don't care what you guys do, as long as you guys pay for it. Guess what? So we go to the policy on her because she said, I know it's going to be expensive. I don't want to leave you guys with that. So that money from her will come back into the family plan. We'll take that and continue on with our young children. So that's kind of a general idea of family banking, just keeping the money coming back into that family bank. But of course, you got to be mature about it. You got to be trusting. You got to, really get past the emotional stage and understand the financial benefit of it. So your family can benefit generation from generation to generation.
Wow.
I totally agree with what Brother Stan says. I would add two things. This is not to take away from what he said. This is just to add to it because he said it. I just want to highlight these two words: communication and strategy.
Communication and strategy.
Now, what he said was basically you are communicating with family and you are establishing a strategy. Now, if everybody is on board with that, yes, you can create your own cycle and own process to the point where with that child who wants to start a business, he can come to Uncle Stan and say, hey, here's my business plan. I need $10,000 to set it up. Stan, look at it. All right, here's my terms. Okay, cool. We're going to sign it. You're going to sign this off, and here's your payment schedule. And rather than you go into Bank of America or whomever, you're going to Bank of Ferguson. And your business will be financed by us. And actually, there we go. Wow. And it could be that way for anything. But the key too is communication and strategy.
Saying it's not coming out of Uncle Stan's pocket either, personally. He's not
no, sir. And I would add that when you sit down, when my nephew or somebody sit down or my grandchild sit down before me, they got the credit score, everything is documented, and there will be a repayment plan. There will be a repayment plan.
Absolutely.
So we're not shorting anybody or anything. We're just doing it, taking the business from giving it away to other communities, keeping it inside our community, and we build our own families that way. That's how we do it. We keep everything in-house and we build our own families. And if there are other communities, other families who want to, learn how to do it, now you got more than one family. Now you got a whole community, because it does take a child to raise a village. I mean, this is what we're doing now. This is the other aspect that I was reading about. There's some organizations that they have a mission, but it's a non-economic mission. Right? It's always that non-economic. It's time for the economic mission, and that's the time we're living in.
Yes. I listened to Dr. Claude Anderson.
Yes, sir.
So Dr. Claude Anderson, I'm a big student of his, and I wholly advocate his strategy. So exactly. That could be a whole different show.
Yes, sir.
But I will say this, guys, and like I said, I thank you for all the information you shared, and I still think we could probably go on another hour easily.
Yes, sir. Easy.
But I really just been sitting there looking at hidden tools of warfare, and it's so relevant because if even the Bible talks about enemies, and we don't believe that we have enemies, where there could be a enemies from a class, from a like I said, an economic class status, or whether it be racial or like I said, demographics, whatever the case is. But you have an enemy, and there are people who would want to keep you in the dark. And I know when I was in the military, one of the first strategies is to cut the communication of the enemy so that they can't communicate.
Right.
Because once I do that, now there's confusion. Right. And so even if someone does have information, but if I cut you off from those who don't have it, I've just conquered it. Now, I've just divided, and now I can conquer you.
Absolutely.
And so you're at war, whether you realize it or want to admit it or not.
Yes.
And I would say this: you can march all you want to, you can protest, you can do all these other things. But I will tell you, there are certain demographics that I see. I have never seen them march. I've never seen them do any of these things. But what I have seen them do is buy up blocks. I have seen them open up businesses. I have seen them do all these different things. And that economic foothold, a stronghold that they have gained, buys them a voice. And they get things done. And I think we should be students of these tools of economic warfare. We need to be students of this, and you got to realize that, one thing the Bible said is the borrower is slave to the lender.
Sure.
So you may not necessarily be wearing physical chains, but you're wearing some financial chains. Mm-hmm. If you can't pay that mortgage or something happens, I guarantee you will realize how much authority that bank really has over you. So they'll send the sheriff's department by your house, and your things will be out on the curb. Mm-hmm. So I really, like I said, just want to thank you all for this. I think this is just the first step. This is, there's so many things that I want to do that God has given me a vision for to springboard out of this podcast. So this is just the beginning here. So there's lots of things to come, and like I said, hopefully we can partner on some of those things as well. But gentlemen, that's all I have to say. I'm going to get off my soapbox because I'll start preaching and get all excited. I got to stop. But yeah, like I said, Dr. Claude Anderson, if anyone is not familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson, get on YouTube and listen to some of his broadcasts. A lot of good information out there. So, and actually these gentlemen are very familiar with them. That's all I have. So, Jim, I want to make sure, like I said, that you all provide your information and give us any last thoughts you may have.
Go ahead, Stan.
First, I'd just like to thank you, Brother Jackson, for inviting us, because I think this is for lack of a better expression, the perfect storm. It is time to get this message out in your community, your congregation. I wish them the best. And anytime that they need help, or anybody that that needs help, they can reach out to us. But I think you have an awesome platform, a very important platform, especially going into the time that we're going into now. So your mission is critical. You have been called for this. I can hear it in your voice. The passion is there, and your mission is right and exact.
Thank you.
Yes.
And where can we reach you all at?
I would like to say thank you as well for actually sharing your platform with us. I appreciate the few minutes we had to talk beforehand, because it let me know where your vision is, and even more important, where your heart. and your spirit is, and it is about the economic war, and you are looking at that from a different front, but the most important front is the education and to stopping that cutoff of the communication so that you can't attack any of our community that's not getting the information. You know,
Right.
That's key. They have to have the information so they are aware, because like you said, if you don't know that you're in economic war, then you are losing it, or you may have already lost it.
Absolutely.
You know, there's two things that we have to be aware of. And I think we are aware, but I don't think we put it into content. We don't like talking about either of them. That's death and taxes. Yes. And I say it in that order because even after you die, you will be taxed.
Absolutely.
You know? So we have to make sure that, and that's part of the strategy, you know, but I appreciate your time, your energy, and your spirit. If we can be contacted at estate.htoew.com. The HTOW stands for Hidden Tools of Economic War. So estate.htoew.com. We are building our website up. That specific portion of the website will kind of cover the things that we discussed this afternoon. And we will be expanding the website hopefully over the next couple of weeks so that we can go live and share more information. I'll give you two phone numbers in which we can be reached at. First number is area code 510-602-2041. And the second number is 478-707-7603. And you don't need to write it down, brother. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Okay, great.
So that you have this information, but
no. And I'll make sure that your information is posted and on our website. So it'll be under the affiliates tab. And like I said, I'll make sure your information is out there. We'll make sure we get you guys connected. And this won't be the last podcast that we'll have you all on. I promise you that. So we'll definitely have you back. And if there's anything that I could do, like I said, to bless, and I call it the ministry, to bless your ministry. Like I said, just let me know, man. I'm already there. So before you even ask, just telling you now, I'm already there. You guys are great. Two great brothers. I appreciate everything you're doing. Appreciate, like I said, your passion, your energy towards this. And I don't believe in consequences. I believe our crossing paths was, I think it was ordained.
Yeah.
Like I said, I definitely was going to go to a different residency, and I ended up choosing that particular residency, and that's where we ended up meeting. Yes. And I don't even think we really talked. I think the first day or two. Yeah. But I think toward the end, I think it's where we really started to connect. Mm-hmm. And man, it was just like, you know, it's like the pilot light went on, you know. Yeah. So, hey, guys, I really appreciate it. Thank you all again for joining Religion, Economics, and Politics, REP. And again, I'm your host, Morris Jackson. Have a good one.